Welcome in, everyone, to the First Call podcast. Special welcome to those of you watching within the confines of the first Pegasus World Cup wager guide. Glad to have you along. Scott Shapiro, Jeremy Plonk from First Bet and Express Bet. We do this podcast each and every Friday of the racing season. Special Pegasus World Cup Day preview here on this edition, but be sure to join us throughout the course of the year. All right, Scott, we're going to talk some handicapping at Gulfstream Park for this Saturday. Some rain earlier in the week at Gulfstream Park. Turf course will have a little bit of give to it, but knock on wood, we'll get some decent weather for Saturday's action in South Florida. And given the rain and the ice storms all over North America coming up this weekend, there is going to be a lot of eyeballs and a lot of dollars pointed towards Gulfstream Park this Saturday.
One would think, kind of getting the nice trip up the rail in the pocket in that turf this day with a lot of the other weather. And I don't think you and I will be amongst those that may not be snowed in at the time of the Pegasus, but it'll be close. We'll be probably snowed in pretty soon thereafter. So should be an awesome day of racing at Gulfstream. And then Santa Anita, I don't think they're going to have any weather problems this time. So they should be rolling out there as well.
From a wagering standpoint, we've got a mandatory payout in the Rainbow Six on Saturday at Gulfstream Park. That's something you definitely want to keep an eye on. If the carryover goes through Friday into Saturday, and we get that carryover pool on Saturday, track management expects $4 million in the pool for the Rainbow Six on Pegasus World Cup Day. It's the 10th edition of the Pegasus World Cup. Let's go for our handicapping schedule. For those of you listening on our traditional audio channels, I'll run through the 8 races Scott and I will handicap over the next half hour or so. For those of you watching on X or on YouTube, be sure to like this, share it out. Tell us who you like in the Pegasus World Cup and the races we're handicapping in the comments section. Help us grow the audience. Be sure to subscribe to the channel as well. All right, Saturday, January 24th, Gulfstream Park. Hey, we always do 8 stakes races each and every week on this show, so they accommodated us with 8 stakes races on the card Saturday at Gulfstream. We're going to take them all. Races 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 down the line, starting off with the Kristoff Clement, grade 3 there for fillies and mares on the turf. The Gulfstream Park Turf Sprint, as you would expect, turf sprinters lining up in that one. We'll go to the Fred W. Hooper for milers on the main track, and that grade 3 race number 8. The William L. McKnight long distance turfers in that one in race number 9, grade 3 company. Then the first of the Pegasus trio, if you will, the youngest of those races, the Pegasus Filly and Mare Turf, grade 2 company in race number 10. Then race number 11 will split things up between the grass races for ease of the course and getting the course ready for the other grass race. So race number 11 will be the inside information stakes on the dirt course. That for top distaffers going on the main track around one turn. Then we go back to the turf for the Pegasus World Cup Turf $1 million race in race number 12, the first of 2 grade 1s, and wrapping it up in race number 13, it'll be the grade 1 10th edition of the $3 million Pegasus World Cup. If you're betting this weekend with First Bet and Express Bet, and we hope that you are, be sure to take part in a $10,000 exactathon on Saturday. Take down 6 races where you hit a $2 exacta, 6 races or more, and you'll share in $10,000 in additional money along with your pari-mutuel winnings. You'll share with just other players who hit that threshold in terms of exactas. And if you hit the most exactas of any player at First Bet or Express Bet on the card, $2 minimums, of course, you'll take down additional prize money as well. And then there's also a $10 money back special, Scott, on all 3 of the Pegasus World Cup races, the Filly and Mare Turf, the Turf, and the Pegasus World Cup. The $10 money back special on win bets means if your win bet in those races up to $10 on the win bet finishes 2nd or 3rd, you'll get that money back in the form of wagering credit. So a little insurance, if you will, if you're betting the Pegasus World Cup races. All 3 of those races begin with that $10 money back special provision playing this weekend. That's a lot to talk about in terms of the gambling. I know we got handicapping tournaments as well. High dollar Pegasus World Cup betting championship, one of the 2 or 3 biggest handicapping contests of the entire year coming up this weekend. You can play that at First Bet or at expressbet.com. So a lot to talk about, Scott. But which horses are we putting on these tickets?
It's going to be a challenge because, if you look at it, you saw the 8 races listed on the slate there that Jeremy put together. The last 6 are the ones that make up that mandatory pick 6. So not only is it going to be a big pool, but it's an all stakes. And I've got a blog up that's going to have more details than we even get into here in terms of, alsos for me. We're going to talk about top picks a lot on here. But yeah, I mean, that sequence is challenging. So if you're someone that is going to take a swing, you should be amply rewarded. Like you said, it's Friday morning when we're recording this. If we get through Friday, and no disrespect to anybody that is live in the final leg today going in to scoop the pool, but if we get so lucky to be live, we should have a monster pool like you suggested for this pick six.
Again, many of you are watching within the Pegasus World Cup wager guide, but if you're on the outside looking in, you're on one of our social media channels, be sure to check out that wager guide. Scott, myself, Millie Ball handicapped the 3 big races. We got Ron Nicoletti, Samantha Perry, Brian Natto, the 3 handicappers at Gulfstream doing the full card for you. You can get links to their full card picks within that wager guide. Go to news.first.com and click on the wager guide icon and get in there and get all the handicapping information. We got profiles on the 12-horse fields in all 3 races. Learn about all the horses and the contenders and check that out. Get yourself set, historical stats and trends, everything you need to play Pegasus World Cup Day. Again, news.first.com, and then click on the wager guide icon. All right, Scott, let's get some winners going here. We're going to start things off handicapping for the stakes series here in race number 5, the first of the graded stakes on the card. It'll be the Grade 3 Kristoff Clement Stakes, named for the famed trainer who passed away May 25th of the past year. The Kristoff Clement Stakes used to be called the La Previante. So if you're wondering how this race history goes, look back to the history of the La Previante Stakes, Grade 3 company there, renamed in the past year for Kristoff Clement. 1.5 miles on the turf in here, and he had so much success over the years with long distance fillies and mares on the grass, fittingly enough that the race is named in his honor. We've got some good ones in this race. Fionn was one of the top 3-year-old fillies in America last year on the grass. She's taking on older horses in here for trainer Brad Cox. That's a big test when they go from the 3-year-old filly restricted ranks into open elders in this particular spot. Do you like Fionn or do you like somebody else?
You know, I mean, this is not a race where I have a super strong opinion, but I think the favorites, No Show, Sammy Joe, and Fionn may be a little bit vulnerable in here, particularly Fionn, the 5-2 second choice who you referenced, taking on older for the first time, just doesn't have early speed, no form over the Gulfstream Park turf, which can often play towards speed, and probably more importantly in this race, not a ton of speed signed on. So I thought there was a chance maybe to beat both of the favorites with a little bit of a preference towards No Show, Sammy Joe. I'm going to try to do so with Alluring Angel in here. Bill Mott, second off the layoff here, takes the blinkers off, and this one was caught wide throughout, despite breaking from the 4-hole last time out. Has worn blinkers in the last 3 starts. The blinkers come off here, which is a positive move for Mott when he does that. The barn's going well, as you would expect here as we hit the peak of the championship meet. And she has the ability to show early speed. So there's not a lot of it. I think maybe Speed Chopper and Alluring Angel could be ones that try to use their inside post to their advantage. But both of them with upset possibilities to me, Alluring Angel at bigger price.
Junior Alvarado riding for Bill Mott. They've already had a pretty good week in South Florida. Eclipse Awards last night announced in South Florida, and it was Sovereignty, the connections of Mott and Alvarado winning Horse of the Year, an Eclipse Award for Mott. Alluring Angel will try to take him on the front end, as she did in the Long Island a couple starts back.
Set to reach the top of the lane. Alluring Angel kicks on and quickly takes 2.5, almost 3 out of the field. Beach Bomb down towards the inside has a clear path to come after Alluring Angel, who's still there. From the back, No Show, Sammy Joe is rolling and lifting late. Alluring Angel's got a 3-length cushion. Beach Bomb to the inside. No Show, Sammy Joe. Alluring Angel, Kendrick Carmouche, they win the Long Island. They were drifting, but they won it. Then came No Show, Sammy Joe, Beach Bomb, and Grayosh up.
I'm going to give a shot here to Ira Stark as well. This is one who I thought was really going to run a big one last time out in the Florence at Turfway. This horse impressed me at Keeneland, drawing off to win by 4 in Allowance Company on a minor class drop, but maybe trending back in the right direction in here for Horatio DePaz. This is a 6-year-old mare. Again, I'm a little concerned about some of these 3-year-old restricted fillies who are now taking on open company for the first time. You got to get a price on those types, and there are several in here. Ramsey Pond, one of those, Fionn, another. So I'm going to go with the older mares in here. I've got Ira Stark. Scott's got the 2 Alluring Angel. We'll see what we can get shaken there in race number 5, the Kristoff Clement. Let's shift gears now to race number 7, handicap race, and race number 6 in between. So we'll stick with the stakes races here. The Gulfstream Park Turf Sprint coming up in race number 7. 5 furlongs on the turf. When they dash at Gulfstream, they're not messing around. Just 5/8 of a mile for the turf sprints at Gulfstream Park here, Scott. 175 grander in this particular spot. I went with number 10, My Boy Prince. This is a horse that's got one of my favorite handicapping angles. I call it the LTB, lay off, turning back, and bullets. Horses who have been laid off, they're freshened up. They're turning back in distance. They should be a little bit sharper, and they're firing bullets in the morning. You don't need to be fit to go 5/8 of a mile. You just need to be right. And I kind of think My Boy Prince, a horse who has run well in turf sprints, almost won the Jaipur, won the Elusive Quality Stakes turf sprinting last year at Saratoga. Mark Casse is just shooting fish in a barrel lately. I mean, his win percentage so far during the month of January has been fabulous. I'm going to take a shot with My Boy Prince in here, a horse who has been running long of late, but has some past history going short on the turf. I'll take that one. Who do you like?
Well, I think what we want, the most likely scenario is that Coppola makes the lead. If I could bet on that, that's maybe the bet I would make.
Yeah.
A horse that's very quick out of the gate and absolutely lightning quick when he's down here in the sun at Gulfstream. I don't really like him in this spot, but I think he'll pave the way from the outside. And I think what number 1 Out on Bail is going to be the recipient or the beneficiary of this one from the outside, kind of moving in. I think Out on Bail is just going to move right into that perfect pocket trip here. Trainer Mike Maker going well of late. This one gets back to the turf after a not so great trip and trying things against Stakes Company at Turfway Park over the all-weather there. Gets back to the preferred service. I just think these races in many cases are about trip if it's not about the best speed, and I think Out on Bail is going to get the best trip.
Let's take a look at Out on Bail getting there. 2 starts back, a victory by a nose in the Carl Place.
Where to go yet for Out on Bail down at the rail. It is Fire Pit trying to hold him off. No evidence in between horses. Cairo Caper Out on Bail switched out to the 4-path, and here comes Out on Bail, and Joel Rosario with that slick move is trying to pass all rivals. Also up on the outside, Cyclonite is battling on. It's a blanket finish here. Out on Bail to the outside, Cyclonite Out on Bail. These two head and head down to the line. Photo finish look like Out on Bail just over Cyclonite, then came spiced up late for 3rd, followed by Landing Craft and a photo with others, and 1 minute 8.
Never in doubt.
To work out a trip from the rail that day as well, Scott, right? That's the same kind of craftsmanship you're going to need out of Tyler Gaffleon.
Absolutely. That was never in doubt. So I'm hoping to get maybe win a tight photo this time around.
Good betting race. There have been some reports that Karim might scratch in here, the 2, so keep an eye on that. Deep closure there. A horse coming out of the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint and the Hong Kong Sprint in the last couple starts. But I've got the 10 in here. My Boy Prince. Scott's going with the 1, Out on Bail. That's our look at the Gulfstream Park Turf Sprint, race number 7. We advance here on the schedule this week on the It's Official podcast to the 8th race on the card, the Fred W. Hooper Stakes, race number 8, a mile on the main track here. These are horses maybe not up to the distance of the Pegasus World Cup, but it's the same division of horses, older males here on the main track. The Fred W. Hooper, named for the late owner of Hoop Jr., the 1945 Kentucky Derby winner. Fred W. Hooper lived to be 102 years young, Scott, if we could all be so lucky. Of course, he was
halfway home.
Yeah, a longtime owner, breeder, and one of the icons of Florida racing. The Fred W. Hooper at a mile here has a purse for Grade 3 company of $175,000. Field of 9 in here, and this race really got some interesting horses. And you talk about middle distance, that's what we're looking at in a 1-turn mile. I'm not sure there's many better middle distance horses on paper than Knight's Bridge, what we've seen out of him at 7 furlongs to a mile throughout his career. But you've got one in here, Life and Times, who's only run twice, and he's kind of threatening that mantle. He has looked like he could be the next really good middle distance horse.
Right. Both of them look serious. Both of them come in off a pair of wins. For Knight's Bridge, it's off the bench. Knight's Bridge always has been fast and struggled to put races together. So a very positive sign that he's now making his 3rd start of the form cycle without a stop. And the blinkers have been on in his first, this 2 starts since. You know, he's going to probably be involved again from the outside here to some extent. And then you got Life and Times, like you mentioned, who's drawn down towards the inside. I don't think he needs the lead, even though if you look at his PPs, he's been up and on it. But You know,
Right.
I think in an ideal world, Jose Lezcano needs to break, on top or very sharp, and then find maybe tuck in, because there is plenty of early speed in this race. Colin
Right.
Campagna is one that's going to show speed, back him up, Knight's Bridge. So
Mhm.
I think there's going to be a lively pace. It brings horses like Tour Player at a big price, Steel Sunshine, who's been proven at this distance into things. But generally, when I watch, when you think about these Gulfstream Park races at the 1 turn mile and in general, these good horses usually find one of the best speeds. Oftentimes, if they're the best horse, finds a way to kind of draw off from the others, and
Yeah.
then picking up the pieces is what's done for closers. Maybe I'm overthinking that a little, but to me, I think Life and Times is probably going to be that horse. So I'm going to take a stand with him.
It's Todd Pletcher, Life and Times. He's looked a lot like Life is Good, another horse who made a run through the Pletcher barn after starting with Baffert. And he kind of has that similar kind of talent profile about him. We'll see how he shakes out on class. Here he was. If you've not seen Life and Times in his 2 starts, here he was in Allowance Company last time out.
Leader is in hand, and it's Life and Times. Life and Times approaches the top of the stretch, has barely been asked by Jose Lezcano. Just nudges Life and Times, and a confident look back, and Life and Times is just cantering away. A furlong left to go. Life and Times will do this very easily, and Life and Times, impressive. Life and Times wins it over Dreamlike up for second. Landoro. But
to beat both of these horses is going to be a tall task, like you mentioned. Generally speaking, one of these outstanding turn-of-foot type milers just kind of, asserts their dominance in these races. Life and Times, Knight's Bridge, a too-deep situation, probably in a lot of multi-race wagers. I did get a little cute, though, and I think Nelson Avenue has a shot to win this, Scott. On the outside, a great post position for this particular kind of scenario where we think there's a lot of speed from the outside with the long run down the backstretch in the 1 turn mile. Flavian Pratt, 2-time Eclipse Award-winning jockey, is the top pilot in America, awarded again last night. He can really kind of pick his spot here and try to pounce. Last time out, finished second in the 49er to this runner, to Bishop's Bay, who came back and won the Cigar Mile and is really an outstanding form. So Nelson Avenue on speed figures doesn't look fast enough to beat those other horses, but has a really good work 59 and change coming up for this. And I just think the way the race sets up, he's not going to come from the clouds. He can sit a little bit. And I think if you're sitting 4th going into the far turn, you may have a shot in this race. You don't want to be coming from the clouds, but I'm going to give Nelson Avenue a shot here to be the right address.
That would be that's in Saratoga, right? Nelson Avenue, I think.
Yeah, yes, it is. Yeah.
Right by the track there. Yeah. I could see if this all comes down the trip, Nelson Avenue winning. If it comes down the class, it would be a surprising result for me. But you do have a good rider, and I do love that outside post. It is the first time with Pratt. So it'll be interesting. You would assume that he would kind of want to just do exactly what you said, find a good stalking spot in the clear and get the jump on the closers if it comes down to that.
Fred W. Hooper starts that mandatory pick 6 in the Rainbow 6 payout, races 8 through 13. And it's a good one to start things off. Maybe somebody can figure out a single between, Life and Times and Knight's Bridge, Yeah,
no, that's the one thing I was going to say with the mandatory pick 6. I think and I mentioned this in my article, I think a lot of people are going to, take the easy way out here. I kind of refer to it as and use the 2 favorites. That doesn't guarantee anything.
Right.
Still can both lose. JP trying to beat them both. But more so, you're just doubling your ticket. And getting very little value. So I understand it's a mandatory pool that brings a little bit of different equations into play, but not enough for me here to just use them both and then start spreading behind them and trying to hit it in a shotgun approach.
All right, let's move to race number 9. Next up, we go from really good, sharp milers on the dirt to the long-distance males on the turf, the 1.5 mile W.L. McKnight. William L. McKnight, the founder of 3M Corporation and Tartan Farms in the great Florida breeding operation back in the day. The McKnight at 1.5 miles on the grass. Who'd you end up going with in this particular spot, Scott?
Well, it's called the McKnight now. I don't know how long it'll be, but it might be called the Maker before long. This race, even though it's presented by Woodford Reserve, it might be called the Maker here soon. He's won it 5 times. I think he won it last in 2023. And I think he's got a real big shot here again with Zerviev, a horse that Cherie DeVoe had, and $330,000 purchase, couldn't really figure totally out. And shocking development, Maker claims for a pretty good chunk of money, 40K. Kind of stretches out in distance and has been a really tough horse to beat ever since. 3 wins on 3 different surfaces. Last time out getting the job done at 1.25 miles over the all-weather. He comes in fresh. He gets IRAD. He gets a favorable inside post. And it's Mike Maker's race to lose before I go into this race and assume it's his race to lose. And I'm going to stick with him here. I think 6-1 would be a very fair offering.
This horse hasn't lost lately. A winning streak of 3 in a row.
Common Defense in hand glides up to the front. He's the one to come and catch in the Boone County Stakes. Tappet Shoes is all in. Zverev is beginning his move, but Common Defense beat him to the punch. Common Defense forwardly positioned throughout. He's the one to reel in. Zverev is rolling to the outside, and Safe Trip Home's finding his stride. Common Defense the leader. Zverev is chasing him to the wire. Here comes Zverev after Common Defense. Zverev has momentum, and he will win the Boone County Stakes.
I had to throw that video in just to chill the South Florida folks there. A little snow pushed to the side of the track at Turfway as you're enjoying that South Florida weather this weekend, and the rest of the country's under the deep freeze. Zverev was my second pick in this race. I tabbed at 6, 1, and 3. I went with number 6, Missed the Cut in here. Second off the layoff, stretching back out in distance. That was a good old school pattern, you know. You come back in 1 16th off the layoff and a little bit easier prep race towards this 1.5 miles, and the horses run well over routes in the past. Won the San Luis Rey at Santa Anita back in 2024. Has changed hands a few times. John Sadler had the horse. Sherita Vels we talked about. Also having Zverev at one point. Missed the Cut now, trained by Bobby DeBona. Decent third in the comeback race at Gulfstream Park. In a race way too sharp, 109 and 3 and change, 109 and 3 for 6 furlongs in the splits there at 1 16th. This will be a much better tempo for a horse like Missed the Cut. I'm going with the 6 in here over the 1. Our 2 picks in here, though, Scott. I've got them 1, 2 in that order.
Yeah, Missed the Cut, always a good performer at this type of longer distances, so a very forgivable effort last time to horses much more meant for that 1.16 So totally understandable angle here. Bobby DeBona, or wasn't he that purchased? It looks like it was the Ivarones, but they got this one for just 80K at the Keeneland sale in November, so this would be a good way to get the money back pretty quick. Second start for them.
All right, that's our picks for the WL McKnight, race number 9. Next up, the first of tri-features on the card. It's the Pegasus World Cup Filly and Mare Turf. For more on this race, be sure to check out the first Pegasus World Cup wager guide, where Millie Ball gives you video analysis and her bets and wagering strategies and picks for the Pegasus World Cup Filly and Mare Turf. Again, go to news.first.com and click on the wager guide link for Millie's analysis of the Filly and Mare Turf. 1 16th here on the main track. Scott, the youngest of the Pegasus World Cup races, Filly and Mare Turf in here. It's got a pretty good field. Grade 2 company in here, $500,000. Some really well-bred horses like Ready for Cheryl, Blue Bloods in here. Caitlin, her greatness, some horses who have done some big things north of the border in Canada. You've got horses like Proctor Street, who are kind of on the rise out of Kentucky for Brendan Walsh. And then you've got some horses who have done some good things in this race and beyond. In Our Time almost won this race on the front end last year for Saffie Joseph. And then you got the 1-2 finishers out of the Tropical Park Oaks, the 3-year-old fillies taking on the elders. A lot of different directions you can go in the Filly and Mare Turf. I think this is a totally wide open case.
Very difficult race. I think the one that is most likely to lead to a spread. So if somehow you can narrow down in the any of the horizontals, particularly the Rainbow Six, it would be to your advantage, especially if you're trying to beat some of the favorites. I think it's completely wide open. What I think may get lost in one dimension, it looks like it's going to be an honest pace. You've got the 5 Classic Q and the 11 In Our Time, both with speed. Just one key thing. The Ortiz brothers are aboard both of them. So I find it very unlikely that these 2 speeds are going to get caught up in a battle. And I don't know if there's anybody else that's really going to press them. I think there's others with tactical speed. So the way I see this race playing out is probably one of them getting the lead and one of them sitting second. I would presume it would be Classic Q. It's pretty tough to rate from the inside. But one way or another, and I think what's going to bode well for is a horse that has only taken on olders once, so it doesn't necessarily fit what you're looking for. But number 10 and One More Time from the outside, I think, has the tactical speed. to be able to get over and work out that trip right off those two. She's on the come. They spent $750 for this horse.
Yeah.
She's done very little wrong, especially since she's been on the turf. And I thought her last race was good. She made a 4-wide move and was run down by Destino D'Oro, who can certainly finish and is unlikely to get the same setup in there. So I'm going to try N one more time, who hopefully gets the trip. If it doesn't go the way I expect and you get the 10-hole Javier Castellano at this age of his career with tactical speed, this horse could be in the parking lot.
They needed the camera to solve the Tropical Park Oaks. Let's go back and take a look at that one. Scott's Filly came up ahead short that day to Destiny Doro. He's looking to flip that result.
Wide sweep to the lead. Off cover and on her back, Destino Doro swings even wider and they fan across the course. They're an eighth of a mile from home. Destino Doro tries to go get and one more time. And one more time is the leader, Destino Doro and Ramsey Pond down the center. Ramsey Pond, Destino Doro try to reach and one more time. And one more time drifts. Destino Doro lunges and gets her anyway. Destino Doro up in time to win the Tropical Park Oaks from and one more time, who was second. Ramsey Pond is third. Closer fourth.
Scott, we talked about the Clement barn a little bit earlier with the Kristoff Clement Stakes. Mare who used to be in his stable care and now with his son Miguel Clement is breath away in here. And this is the horse whom I landed on. I thought the pace last time really worked against her. 48 and change, 112 going a mile at Del Mar. That is walking over a pool table turf course like at Del Mar. She got no pace help. But the way you kind of say things with the Ortiz brothers with the two controlling speeds in this race, they might not be pace helping this one either. They may kind of coax along on the front end. So I'm not sure she's going to get a great pace setup, but she got no pace setup last time out in the Matriarch. I'm going to give Breath Away my shot here under Ocean Murphy. She's run well over the course in the past. Let's just hope we get a little bit of tempo because she's going to be coming from farther back than some of the other contenders.
I think she's the best finisher in the race. I just am worried about the race shape. If I'm playing a ticket, which I'm sure I will, she'll definitely be on it, because I can't guarantee that the race shape is going to play out the way I want. She definitely has a shot, and you get a very good rider here coming in to ride her in Murphy.
All right, that's a look at the Pegasus Filly Mare Turf, race number 10 on the card, Saturday at Gulfstream Park. To race 11, we'll go next. It's the Inside Information Stakes, named for the 1995 Breeders' Cup Distaff winner, wearing the Phipps Silks back in the day. Dominant winner, one of the most dominant winners in the history of the Breeders' Cup when Inside Information won the Distaff. 7 furlongs, grade 2 company here for $250,000. Race 11 on the cards, got another big field. I mean, we're talking about this mandatory payout pick 6, Rainbow 6 that is just loaded with 11, 12 horse fields and some also eligibles in some of the spots. Another dozen in this one on the main track. Who do you like in this sprint?
Well, it's another race where you kind of the first thing you want to do in these races at Gulfstream on the dirt is find the speed and make sure there's enough of it. I think it's easy to find the speed. Graham Job, who comes back and has had trouble putting races together for Bill Mott, comes back off a forgivable effort when breaking just okay from the inside against the good allowance field at Churchill Downs and battled early before tiring late. I think she's going to make the lead, and I think she is dangerous out there because, if she gets out there loose on a speed favoring racetrack at all, she's going to be tough to catch. I did go, and I'm going to use her as a kind of an A, if you will, but I did lean to number 1, Indy Bay, who I think I can count on a little bit more here. Although another one that I'm taking on the Jeremy Plonk angle, the first time taking on older runners in here.
I don't mind it so much with the main track horses. The turf is kind of, and the reason I say that, just to kind of give a little explanation of the handicapping angle, when you're talking about 3-year-old fillies on the turf, you're talking about a restriction to the age, a restriction to the sex, and a restriction to who likes those kind of surfaces or not. So it's almost like a triple step up when you kind of go against the olders. It's a lot of different new things when 3-year-old fillies leave the turf and go against the older mares. On the main track, I think your best 3-year-old fillies are on the main track. They're not on the turf. So it's not as big a deal, I don't think, for the dirt horses taking on older horses for the first time. But certainly on the turf, it's been something that I've followed over the years. Indy Bay, Scott, you've got one certainly at 7/8 of a mile who has shown, a real flash of talent.
Right. And you get the rider, you get the inside draw, which is, if she breaks well, should work out well with an outside speed horse. Irad, he's been riding very aggressive over the last couple of years. You even pointed it out with the Derby horses on the Derby trail last year, how aggressive he was riding those horses. But he's going to have no problem getting this one into a good spot early. Last race, total toss. Not only was it a mile and a 16th, but it was at Parks. She's been given time. She's coming in the race off a long series of drills here, including a couple really quick ones for Safi Joseph. And, I'm not overly familiar with her working patterns and how she, comes into races, but she seems to be doing very well, going into this spot and should get the right trip.
You wonder about the rail, you say, big field of 12, the rail, but look who's next to her and think how she could get the trip. Necessity, Jody's Pride, Her Laugh, Claret Beret. None of those horses really have that much early speed. So she's going to be able to get a little bit of comfort out of there, I think. And so I don't think the rail's a bad spot for Indy Bay at all. Her win 2 back in the Charlestown Oaks is what Scott's looking to repeat.
And they're on their way home. Steps up for a fight. He's digging hard. Outside to Penn Street with an 1/8 of a mile to bridge the gap. The rider just lost the stick on the leader. They come past the 8th pole.
Indy Bay will need to find racing room. Secret Faith is putting in a 4-wide rally, and then comes Not Too Late. Volleyball Princess, Zip Start, Paradise City trying to run on from the back. But in the meantime, Vodka with a twist puts her head in front of Andrea, and Indy Bay tips the 3-pat to put in her bid. 3 across the track with a furlong to go in the Charlestown Oaks. Vodka with a twist fighting on. Andrea is 2. Indy Bay over the top, getting to them and taking the lead. Indy Bay takes over late from Vodka with a twist and Andrea. It's Indy Bay in the Charlestown Oaks by just over a length.
Underrated caller there, Paul Espinoza.
Yeah, he is great. It's nice to get him into the podcast and obviously, and for you to shout him out. Paul, really one of the better race callers, I think, in the country. His grandfather, his father, I used to bet on his grandfather's a jockey, Victor Espinosa, who became a trainer. And of course, his dad was a racing executive with Equibase. Paul is Charlestown through and through. I mean, pedigree. So I don't know if he's got aspirations to go to the big circuits or if he just wants to be like Costi Karras was at Charlestown, who the voice of the track for, decades and decades. But Paul is an absolutely first-class race caller. And it's nice to hear him call big horses now, like we get in the Charlestown Oaks and the Charlestown Classic and the races they have there. Scott's pick's going to be Indy Bay and the inside information. Fortunately, he's already mentioned the winner of this race. He started off talking about Grand Job, and I'm with him on Grand Job. I'm going right to the front, Scott. We're going to eliminate the variables in here. I'm going to pick Grand Job to go wire to wire in this spot. I think there's a lot of horses who want to sit second and third, but other than Dazzling Move, who's cutting back in trip a little, not a lot of ones in the past performances. I think Grand Job's going to get to the front. Maybe Mott and Alvarado can keep that dream week going for them, and she's run well fresh, and she's run well, or second off the layoff, and she's run well with a work pattern that looks like she's going to come firing out of here. Second start off the layoff. Hopefully it was just Churchill Downs last time out, where she got stuck down inside. She's outside this time, and maybe she gets a little bit cleaner trip. I'm going to go with Grand Job as my top pick in this race. I do think Jody's Pride's an interesting horse from off the pace, coming out of a couple turf races, but I think dirt around 7/8 to a mile is probably her best trip, and I give her a shot in here. Jody's Pride under Pratt. I think she's going to be the one late to fear.
Yeah, she's got upset possibilities in here without question because she has races to go back to. You look at a lot of the other runners in the field, and you kind of need to find that race that's good enough to win this, and it's probably going to have to be a career best. It doesn't take a lot to look at Jody's Pride. It's a little interesting. They were on the turf in a couple of races when I don't really know why they needed to be. They took some shots, but not sure what to make of that now coming back off a layoff. But big work recently. You get Pratt. And if the price is right, certainly worth including.
Sometimes you'll see trainers put horses on the turf if they got a little bit of foot problem, things like that.
That's what I always
kinder
think.
On their feet. You never know if they're run up a little bit and they've got some abrasions, things like that. Sometimes they'll go on the turf for softer, going, but not to speculate that there's any problem with Jody's Pride in that particular spot. But if you're a fan and you're reading the past performances and you're trying to read between the lines, that's one of the scenarios that's out there sometimes. And perhaps you'll hear something in an interview if you catch a paddock interview before a race and someone asks good questions and you get some of that response. That's the kind of thing you want to keep your ears up for and listen for, some explanations why horses were in particular spots, because that can kind of, fill in those question mark blanks for you as you're handicapping through the past performances. Let's go next to the Pegasus World Cup Turf. $1 million race, 1 1/8 on the main track, the second of the Pegasus races in sequence, the second oldest of the Pegasus races in terms of venerability. We've got 12 horses entered, with 13th Balnikoff isn't also eligible. Balnikoff entered earlier on the program, probably runs in that spot. So we're looking at a dozen starters for race number 12 on the card, Scott. Test Score down on the inside, a horse who won the Twilight Derby, won the Belmont Oaks Invitational earlier in the year, or the Belmont Derby Invitational, program trading, multiple grade 1 winner, a good quality group in this particular spot. Cabo Spirit, a horse from Southern California who's pulled many an upset in his front-running turf career. He's always a threat when he's in these spots. And then the returnees from the Fort Lauderdale Stakes, where we had just a bang-up finish in that race, where Wolfie's Dynaco set a North American record for the fastest 1.1 on turf in North American history in that race. He's not back, but several of his pursuers are, out of what should be a pretty live race. This is a fun edition of the Pegasus Turf.
It is, and I went through it all and landed on the chalk, baby. So, you know, I just see what I see. I think Chad Brown maybe has kind of figured out this race a little, just kind of how to get, you know, which kind of horses he wants to have prepared to get ready for this race. He did it last year with Spirit of St. Louis, a horse that we saw peak for this race and kind of run okay the rest of the year. Actually ran well in Kentucky. But, you know, this was his, you know, when it got started, and it didn't end up being a championship season. Program trading to me looks like that horse this year. You look back at his last couple of efforts, the Breeders' Cup Mile, he wasn't going to win the race, but he got absolutely stopped. So that 10th place effort, pretty meaningless to me. He was going to definitely be within the range of the top few in there, if not in the picture, other than notable speech. Then you've got the Turf Mile, where you had a favorable flow, but a strong field, a grade 1 and a legit grade 1 at Keeneland. And then in the Fluke, where he ran second, he ran into Donegal Momentum and was loose on the lead, in Saratoga going very slow. So all really good races. I think he repeats the Turf Mile, which I expect him to be able to do with a clean trip. He beats this field just most of the time, and I think he's going to get that right trip under Flavian Pratt.
Let's go back to that start in October at Keeneland. Kurt Becker on the mic.
Rhetorical swings to the outside from 4th, quarter mile to go. Program Trading is in 5th. Beach Gold is in 6th. Diego Velasquez is 7th. He's out in the center of the course with a lot of work to do. Quattro Cento is in front in the final furlong. Here comes Rhetorical. Rhetorical draws alongside. Program Trading. Epic Ride to the inside. It is Rhetorical in front. Program Trading. Jonquil running late. Rhetorical to the wire. Rhetorical to win the Grade 1 Coolmore Turf Mile for Irad Ortiz Jr. 1 minute 33.61 seconds.
Just 3 starts on the campaign that didn't begin until August after a long layoff for Program Trading. And as we hit January in some of these big races, it's kind of a restart to the campaign for a lot of horses. But for him, he hits the form cycle, if you will. You know, the 3 starts to the end of last year to the Breeders' Cup, and then right on pattern here now. He's kind of working into where this could be a big spot for Program Trading.
No, that's exactly it. I went into the race thinking he was going to be a beatable favorite. And I came out of it thinking he's going to be he's the clear one to beat. Not going to rush to the windows to bet him at 5-2 or lower, but I will use him as a potential single in challenging sequences.
Yeah.
And also in the exactathon, I think it's an opportunity that you spoke about earlier. You need some bunch of $2 exactas, 6 or more. I think it's a chance to key him either on top, or if you're using long shots with him, 1st or 2nd. So I'm going to hope I can be right in this spot with one that is logical. Might be a little over bet, but hopefully won't matter in the horizontals.
A little bit of detail to that exactathon that we've mentioned a few times, that promotion this weekend. You need to hit exactas in 6 or more races in order to be eligible for the big bonuses in that. But you can bet an unlimited number of $2 exactas. So it's not like you get one shot at it. You know, it's not like race 1. I took a $2 shot. I didn't get it. So play $2 exactas, $2 or more. Multiple chances in a particular race and work it out. And, you know, if you take down those exactas, it's, you hit. So you can box 3 horses. You can box 4 horses. You can box as many as you want. You can wheel, whatever. But again, you just need to hit a $2 win or $2 winning exacta in 6 of the races. Doesn't matter how many combinations you play in each race. So as you're playing throughout the day, if you want to kind of strategize for that, we've seen these exactathons return where people are getting several hundred to low thousands back in returns, that there aren't that many people hitting the big number of exactas in some of these races that are difficult. And so this is a shot where you can make some big money here, adding to your win bankroll in the exactathon this weekend. Scott's going with number 2 Program Trading, the favorite in the Pegasus World Cup Turf. Second choice in there for me. I'm going to try to beat the favorite with number 4 One Stripe. This is strictly a visual play. Went back and watched the replay of his allowance win over this turf course December 26th and was just wowed. I know he didn't beat much in that race, but he did it the right way. Big question mark in here is the Lasix, right? He had Lasix that day in allowance company. Can't use Lasix in the graded stakes race here. Was it the Lasix that brought the game up for One Stripe, the South African export for Graham Motion? Or was it the drop in competition that kind of got him a confidence boost and back? This is a grade 1, Group 1 winner in South Africa. He's reunited with the South African jockey in here, Gavin Lorena. So I'm interested in this one, Scott. I really like the way he looked visually, but I will say I'm not sure if it's the Lasix or not. We'll find out.
Well, we had this conversation a couple of days ago because literally I was more and more attracted to this horse for the same reason. Very impressive effort. Relaxing better than he did in the Breeders' Cup Mile, and then doing so and pulling away convincingly against Lesser. So he is a must-use in that second tier for me. If you're not convinced by Program Trading, it makes him a must-use on that top line. You definitely made me not necessarily pointed me on this horse. He was going to be a B for me, but I've gradually moved him up to a B+, if you will.
Look at the pace scenario in this race. Cabo Spirit, clearly the speed. There's hardly anybody else who wants to go anywhere near the front. Maybe Major Dude or One Stripe sits second, third, second, however which way they may want to go in here. And it could be a first over trip trying to attack Cabo Spirit. You get the run on Program Trading, who's going to come from a little bit farther back in the pack based on his past running style. There's not much speed in here, which also puts Cabo Spirit back into the conversation. How many times has he caught races like this and just milked them on the front at nice prices? He never gets bet. He's always disrespected. You can't find an asterisk in his running lines. Cabo Spirit's made $1.3 million, and if you look back at his last 12 starts, he's been below 6-1 once at 9-2. He never gets bet, but he gets a good, favorable setup here under Mike Smith.
I'm a Cabo Spirit whisperer, not to brag, but I think this is a little bit too much. I mean, he usually does it against a little softer fields, and I don't think he's going to just get away. And if he does, you know, it's a lot to ask. Maybe underneath. I'll be happy if anybody's going to win the race without my money, and I'll be happy if it's Cabo. I think Program Trading is going to be a little closer. He has that ability to be there. I think they'll know the pace, and coming off a little bit of a freshening, hopefully pops the gate.
Riders race, turf course, big field, big money on the line, pace scenario a little muddled. Jocks are going to make a difference, I think, in the Pegasus World Cup Turf. Again, when you bet this race with First Bet and Express Bet, $10 money back special up to $10 in your win bet. So if you bet a horse $10 to win in this race and they run second or third, you get your money back in the form of wagering credits. They get deposited back early in the week. So it's a shot to maybe take a chance against the favorite if you're making an inter-race bet in this particular spot. If you run second or third, you'll get something back. But if you're playing the multi-races and you're set on Program Trading, might be the place where you single. You could be singling this horse in the multi-race bets, and then as a backup play, take a shot on a horse to beat Program Trading on a $10 win bet. If you finish second or third, you're kind of playing back with some insurance to get some of that cash back up to $10. Let's go to the 13th and final race. It's the Pegasus World Cup, big race of winter at Gulfstream Park, $3 million. This is the 10th edition of the Pegasus World Cup. There's a lot of talk and consternation on the internet about the quality of this year's Pegasus World Cup. If you look at resumes, blind resumes, Scott, if I told you there was a race in America with 2 Breeders' Cup winners, 2 Florida Derby winners, and high quality competition with an undefeated horse, 5 for 5 for a champion trainer and Brad Cox is the favorite, you'd say it's a pretty good race. But when you look at the history of the Pegasus World Cup and you see the big names, the Gun Runners, the California Chromes, the Arrogates, horses of that ilk, we don't have anyone of that ilk in this particular field. So it falls somewhere in the middle of a classic race with the big marquee horse and a very good race that's got a lot of great options. From a gambler standpoint, I'll take the options.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I enjoy seeing the great race horses compete. That some of them have been ultra tough in this race. If you look at the winners, you'll understand the list, Jeremy, and maybe a couple more that Jeremy just mentioned. That said, I think this race does have a couple of horses that are classier at the moment, or at least I'm hopeful, because you look around, you've got horses that are more proven than both of the Brad Cox runners in terms of classy wins. I mean, of course, Tapan Street won the Florida Derby last year, but what wasn't seen since then. In Disco Time's best win is in the Grade 3 Lecomte in terms of on paper, and you've, of course, got the Breeders' Cup winners and such, but those are the ones coming into the race the way I want, when there's not an Arrogate, when there's not a California Chrome, when there's not a Gun Runner. I think you want the now type of horse. National Treasure would be the one that comes to mind. Bob Baffert had that horse ready to fire his best shot in a race that looked like a soft edition of the Pegasus. He ended up going on to do big things. I think it's pretty likely one of the Brad Cox runners will do that. I leaned on Tapan Street, because I think he is the going to be the bigger price, significantly bigger on Brian's morning line, but we'll see if they don't come together a little more. But I think one of them is going to run a big race here, and I'm going to play it that way in the pick six.
Tapan Street won last year's Florida Derby over Sovereignty. You can't argue with the running line in that one. In his comeback race in Allowance Company, after being off more than 9 months, he won an Allowance Company. More of a workmanlike effort in that one, but that wasn't the destination. This is the destination. Here's Tapan Street in his prep.
And they're on their way home. Steps up for a fight. He's digging hard. Outside to Pan Street with 1/8 of a mile to bridge the gap. The rider just lost the stick on the leader. They come past the 8th pole. Here's to Pan Street on the outside. Rising forward now. Back to second is Step. Back to third, Flying Liam. It's to Pan Street who will get the job done. To Pan Street comes back a winner. He beat Step by a length. Third was Flying.
Who's up off that allowance race. Second off the layoff. Again, we talk about those old school training methods. Second off the layoff, an easier race into the prep. That's going back in time with Brad Cox making this kind of training move, and that could be beneficial for Tapan Street, who goes from the 1-turn mile now to the 1 1/8 at Gulfstream. A lot to like, I think, in terms of the form cycle with that one, Tapan Street. As for the other Cox horse, let's talk Disco Time here for a minute. He's 5 for 5 lifetime, average margin of victory over 4 lengths, but I challenge anyone. Look at the second and third place finishers that he's run against. None of those horses would be under 30-1 in the Pegasus World Cup. He's never beaten anyone. And when you go back and look at, yes, he's won around 2 turns in a race like the Lecomte Stakes. That was the first time in 14 years the Lecomte did not produce a horse for the Kentucky Derby. That was a bad edition of the Lecomte Stakes that he won by a neck. Now, he's won 2 since. They went to the St. Louis Derby, and then they won the Dwyer at Aqueduct. Not exactly Travers and Breeders' Cup Classic. So he has taken the road less traveled. He is not toughened against great competition, but that doesn't mean he might not have the talent. If you like numbers, he's thrown buyers up of 101 and 107 in his last couple. It's Flavian Pratt, it's Brad Cox. If you badmouth a horse like this too much, you put him right into the winner's circle. But I can't take a shorter price on him. I know he's 8 to 5 in Brian's morning line. Some people think Brian Nadeau, the odds maker at Gulfstream Park and track handicapper, some people question whether or not he'll be that low. But based on numbers with that 107 buyer last time and all those ones in the past performances, it's Pratt, it's Cox. He may be that low. And if he is 8 to 5, I can't take him at 8 to 5.
No, that's the whole thing. I mean, especially you got him down on the rail. There's other speed in here. He's never answered the class question. He's never answered the racetrack question. We don't know how much he likes it at Gulfstream Park. We don't know.
Has got a 1 1/8.
I think he's got a ton of talent. I thought he was one of the ones coming after the Lecomte, because as much as that was a bad field, he didn't have a good trip that day. And he's just wowed since. He's just not a good bet. I wouldn't be surprised if he won by 5, though, as well.
Mika probably makes the front in here. We agree. Mike Maker's horse coming out of the Cigar Mile when hitting the front in 45 and change. Part of that pace. The pace should be fairly strong here, but it's Gulfstream Park, right? And you look at the history of the Pegasus. They've run this race 9 times. The winner of the Pegasus hasn't come from more than 2 lengths off the pace in any of the 9 previous editions. So even if there is heat in here, generally speaking, one of these classy horses in the handicap division is able to shrug them off. We talked about that in the Hooper when we were handicapping that race on the main track a little bit earlier. For that reason, I think Full Serrano's in the mix here. I don't know if he makes the lead, but I think he probably sits second in here. Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile has been the key prep for horses to have success coming at the Pegasus World Cup. He's the only horse coming out of the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. I know he wasn't as strong in that race this year as he was a year ago when he won it, but I think he's got a ton of talent. And I love what I see with my eyes. There's a lot of horses in this race I don't know about on paper. I don't know what Disco Time's going to do on paper. I don't know about Japan Street against older horses on paper. But what I do know from my eyes, that workout at First.TV for Full Serrano on January 11th, absolutely insane. The one on January 17th may have been better. Humongous gallop out in there. I thought he looked fantastic. I think he's training exceptionally well in here. He'll be forwardly placed. So he's forwardly placed. He's training exceptionally well. We're going to find out if he can get a mile and an eighth. He almost did in the Awesome Again Stakes when he ran well at Santa Anita. He's coming out of the key prep. I'm going to take my shot with Full Serrano in here, Scott. But I don't have a ton of confidence in this year's Pegasus World Cup, but he's the one my eyeballs are telling me I love the way he's training.
I think you're going to get a great price. The Sadler barn has not been going all that well out in California now, shipping cross country, but that doesn't matter with a horse of this nature, their best horse or one of them right now. So if he's training well, should be a good price. And yeah, you've been a little more creative with your opinions. And pretty much prices in every race, I feel like. But the one price I'll throw out there, just as I don't have a ton of confidence in my opinions this year in this race. I just think that one of the Coxes is a class above in terms of talent. But Banishing is a little bit interesting if he's going to be 15 to 1. You get Jose Ortiz. It's a horse that has kept better company than anybody, I would argue. Maybe Madaket Road would debate that, but and maybe a couple others. But Banishing certainly has kept great company. He brings it almost every time. And the mile and an eighth, I don't think is his best distance. But at Gulfstream, if he's ready to fire his best, he'd have a little better shot at getting it than maybe some other tracks.
And he's based at Oaklawn Park, where I know they're dark right now for a couple of weeks and then reopen next week. But there's a lot of money in the handicap division at Oaklawn Park. You talk about races like the Razorback and into the Oaklawn handicap. If they just stayed there, they could run for a lot of dough. They didn't need to come here. I know it's $3 million, and it's during a time where Oaklawn's closed for a couple of weeks here. Banishing is interesting. This is a bold placement. When they brought him to Louisville to run on the Derby undercard in the Churchill Downs handicap, he almost shocked the field in that one, coming from well off the pace. Nobody thought he could be kind of a one-turn sprinter at 7/8 of a mile. He just runs. It doesn't matter where they take him, who he runs against. Banishing's going to bring his game. He is very interesting.
That's it. It's just looking around for some value in here who might get forgotten, particularly when I'm looking at horizontals. I mean, he might play even bigger than that. Horses like him, horses like Full Serrano. I'm sure people will think like me, both the Coxes, and obviously there's other ones with more proven resumes as well.
That's going to wrap up our handicapping for Pegasus World Cup Day at Gulfstream Park. A lot of great racing around the country. Sister track Santa Anita should have beautiful weather over the course of the weekend. And this weekend in our Express Bet Beat the Host handicapping contest, we combine Gulfstream and Santa Anita each and every week. 10 races to handicap. The guy you got to beat, you're looking at him right over there, Scott Shapiro. He is in the ring, and he's been training hard for this one. So get ready for Scott in the Beat the Host handicapping contest this weekend. It's the final 5 races on the card at Gulfstream, the first 5 races on the card at Santa Anita. Hint, hint, you know who he likes already in the final 5 at Gulfstream because we talked about him here. So Scott's secret sauce will be his secret picks for Santa Anita's first 5. You'll have to take him down in those 10 races in order to play in the $65,000 Express Bet Beat the Host handicapping contest. Be sure to try that this weekend. So far on the campaign, we've had Pete Aiello, Millie Ball, and Michelle Yu put up good totals. I believe they've knocked out 2/3 of the competition each week so far in the first 3 weeks. So the hosts have held form and done pretty well this week. We look forward to Scott doing so as well. Buddy, I'll give you the final word as you head into your big bout.
Yeah, I'm nervous. You guys have a huge edge against me, the Santa Anita races. I'm really going to have to buckle down and come up big. JP saying how good the hosts have done already. Might not sleep that well tonight. We'll see.
Good luck to everybody playing this weekend. We'll be back next week on Friday, handicapping the return of racing at Oaklawn and big races around the country each and every Friday here on the First Call podcast. Enjoy and good luck.